You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTBAN's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performance was just lacked that intensity.
So, for anybody who's just joining us or has never seen this before, we start in the red and we finish in the green, and red is bad, and then there's a mediocre one in the middle, which is amber, and then there's the green, which is like, yay, these are good performances, or this is a good week, or this is a good time to be in that section. And, you know, Eoin, it's a difficult job, but someone's got to be in the red this week.
This is actually the easiest categorisation of poor versus good performances in the history of the Gillette Performance Rankings. Number 5 is Stephen Kenny in the red. We'll go through this. In the red, it also is Munster. At amber this week is France. I think France are eternally amber until they go ahead and win the 2023 World Cup. The Kenny haters are in the green. People who were anti-Stephen Kenny from the first moment, congratulations. Very much in the green this morning, and Leinster in the green. So the red, I guess, is where we should start with Stephen Kenny, and maybe the point that you made a couple of moments ago, I'm not sure, did it come in from a listener, this idea of maybe Stephen Kenny's substitutions, which is the first place maybe to start when people are looking for tangible information with which to bash him. Like, they probably haven't been good enough. Has the system been good enough, and has he actually second-guessed himself with the 3-5-2 is a question that maybe a lot of people will have as well over the past couple of days. No matter what way you paint this, and I'm at pains to point out here that nobody's sitting here this morning saying Stephen Kenny's doing a good job as Ireland manager, because maybe some of the commentary around the show this morning seems to think that that's the case. We should be at pains to point out that he has not done a good job so far. The proof that is in the pudding is not good so far, and I don't think you can make a case for him to be anywhere other than the red at the moment. He's under severe pressure and will be after the next international break. And I think when Nathan put it to Stewie Byrne earlier on in that video that Stephen Kenny is fighting for his job, I think he's bang on with that. That's exactly the situation he's going to be in once internationals resume.
Yeah, look, it's a really difficult situation. You can't credibly come back for this without having a big uptick in performances really quickly, and Portugal are next. And look, Portugal, we saw, I don't know if everybody saw Cristiano Ronaldo storming off and throwing his captain's armband on the ground because he thought that he'd scored a last-minute winner in Serbia, which probably would have been good for Ireland in the long run. But anyway, largely irrelevant at this point. And the Portuguese team are pretty good. Diego Jota looked pretty good. Bruno didn't start the first game. He started the second game, but they didn't need to start him in the first game. Well, I mean, look, they were a bit arrogant in that first game and nearly got caught. So you would expect Portugal to beat Ireland, and the way that England beat Ireland pretty well, notwithstanding the motivational video, that's what good teams do to bad teams, and at the moment we are a bad team.
It's as blunt as that, really. Like, the one thing that maybe you can point towards is that Ireland did well against Serbia and did well against Slovakia when the stakes were at its highest, and it'll feel like the stakes are pretty high for that Portugal game, and maybe they'll come out swinging, but the quality isn't there to beat Portugal. The positive that you might give to, or that you might predict over the next few months, is that if Ireland do manage to finish this campaign well, which is winning the majority of the games they're supposed to win, which, again, I'll go back to my point of getting 12 points against Azerbaijan and Luxembourg. If they can get 9 points from the remaining 3 games against Azerbaijan and Luxembourg, and maybe get something off the big 2, then all of a sudden the conversation is about the young players and how much they're going to bring to Ireland over the next couple of years. And the question will be, who do you want to nurture them and take them on to the next European qualification campaign? And in that scenario, you could see a case where Stephen Kenny stays on.
What's the minimum points tally that you get to from this point, do you think, where the FAI can credibly say, actually, you know what, we've seen enough here. The green shoots are real, and we've seen enough?
I think it's very hard to put a number on that, but if they're in double figures come to the end of the campaign, the FAI could credibly make that case. They might make the case, but less than that anyway, and there might be people there will definitely be people who will disagree with it completely. I think no matter what happens at this point, there will be people who will vehemently disagree with Stephen Kenny being kept on beyond this campaign. I think that ship has sailed. The idea that he can get everybody on board, supporters-wise, before the end of this. What is going to be very interesting, though, is what happens when the stadium returns. What is the litmus test at the moment for where the public mood is towards Stephen Kenny? Is it on social media, looking at the hashtag Kenny out doing the rounds on Twitter? Is it our interactions with people who comment on our show? Is that like a good straw poll for us? Because I think from our comments, it's pretty evenly split. Like I think the best indicator for that is what the sound in the stadium might have been on Saturday night, or what the sound in the stadium would be maybe in the home game against Azerbaijan, for example, if it's not a good result. That we don't know just yet. And there is an element of this being up in the air at the moment about what is everybody thinking, like what is the national mood. Like it is interesting to see that Paul McGrath has come out yesterday and said that now is the time for Stephen Kenny to be sacked. How many people actually believe that, or how many people are actually on the side of the fence that suggests that no, let's see this campaign out, but he definitely has to go? Because there are two different things, and there is a level of severity that differs amongst people, I'd imagine, when it comes to saying Kenny's not the man for the gig.
Yeah, and look, it's increasingly hard to make the case that they've done enough at this point to say they've got credit in the bank. The problem is that there isn't that much credit in the bank.
Yeah.
Like if, for example, everything had gone in the sequence that it was supposed to go, and they had qualified for a tournament underage and they had done well in that tournament underage, then you might have been able to say, well, look, there is some credit in the bank there, and he's been forced to turn to those younger players a little bit earlier than possible. It's just that didn't happen, and we haven't seen that. So we saw really very clear signs of what his football philosophy was with the underage team, and the whole point that most of the world's best football federations get people in-house, build a culture, give them access to training and resources to turn them into better managers, and then bring them up when they're ready to go into the international, the main gig. Like that looks like a good idea. That looks like a good philosophy. How we got there obviously was slightly tangled and chaotic compared with other football federations. But like, shouldn't the next manager that the FAI appoint after Stephen Kenny be somebody in-house? Isn't that actually the right thing to do in the long run? That like, this is the trend, this is what we're going to do? Or do you just keep going for Neil Lennon, Chris Hughton, somebody from outside? Like, you know.
Yeah. Like
the Sean Dyche argument about Burnley earlier on that Stephen Ward was making, like, you know, Burnley had a way of playing, it was very successful. There is more than one way to skin a cat. Like, is there a variation of how Burnley play football that the Irish football public are going to want to watch, that they're going to get behind, show up and fill the stadium and tune in big numbers on telly when the team plays? Is that what we want?
If they win, like, the conversation soured around Irish football, not just because of the style of football, but because the style of football was resulting in very few qualifications for tournaments. What is it, 2 in 7? It'll be 2 in 8 now after the end of this qualification campaign that Ireland have qualified for. Like, it's a different thing. If you're telling me that the Burnley style will guarantee qualification for tournaments and success relatively at those tournaments, then of course everybody will go for that. But this is different. Like the conversation is not about being pleasing on the eye. The question is about being effective. And there is a school of thought out there that being the old school way of playing actually just wasn't that effective. That you know, there were a couple of fluky moments here and there and a couple of really good moments, but actually there was an idea that if you played in a different manner that was more possession based, that played maybe more to the strengths of the team, which I guess is up for debate, you would get more qualification for tournaments. You would have a higher success rate results-wise. It all comes back to results. That's what everybody wants. That's the one thing everybody can agree on. And like, I think up until the weekend, I didn't really understand why people would necessarily want to maintain the way Irish football was going for the last 10 years, because it wasn't overly successful. It wasn't successful at all.
No, and look, I think that if... I think that the difficulty here is that you can go through all of the decisions that were made on a micro level and pick holes in them now, because we got beaten by Luxembourg. Like, so I'm looking at the number of 90-minute games that James Collins has played, and in 2021 it's not a whole heap. He's finished 2 games, and he's not starting games that much at the moment, and he's your striker for literally a must-win game. And although he wouldn't say it was must-win, he knew it was must-win. Must-win in terms of his career and must-win in terms of the group. And, like, I don't know. I don't know, would it have been different if Shane Long had been up front? Would Shane Long have scored that chance? Would Shane Long have missed that chance? We'd be like, that's why Shane Long shouldn't be starting, because Shane Long misses chances. I don't know. Like, it's just grim now from the management's perspective and from the fans' perspective. And what do you do next?
I certainly feel I'm kind of edging towards a Richard Cooper version of us here by saying, where do we go from here, and what does happen next? Like, but that is the question. Richard said it best. Where do we go from here? Is certainly top of my head. Like, is it slightly encouraging to hear Stephen Ward say this morning that there is a style being implemented at under 15, under 16 level in Ireland that is relatively coherent when you compare it with under 21 and national level? Maybe there is like an identity that's starting to spill down from the national team, at least. Like the next step is how that actually transfers into grassroots and maybe league football in this country, obviously. But like, maybe they see Stephen Kenny as the end product of a system that encourages a certain style of play. But the problem is maybe that system just will take years to actually produce the players that Stephen Kenny can get the most out of. Maybe Stephen Kenny's just arrived too soon. That is another thing that's come into my mind.
Yeah, that definitely did strike me. It was like you had a fair idea of the talent coming through. Like, you should have just sat there, 21 manager, reputation growing, getting, do 2 tours of duty, get all those players through, so that when you come in, your players are 23, 24, hitting that level that Robbie Brady was at, that Jeff Hendrick was at in 2016. If you could tap him on the shoulder and say, don't take that call, just miss that call, and take the gig next, because don't worry, it'll come.
The other eventuality here is that the style of play might not be the worst shout in the world eventually, but that Stephen Kenny isn't the right man to implement it. Which
I don't know. I mean, look, he seems to know what he's doing.
But that's just another possibility. Like,
maybe
we don't know for sure, and time will tell. But there is that, like, there is a sense of no matter what side of the divide you're on, or what your opinion is on it, because it's not necessarily a divide anymore. There is a chance that you throw the baby out with the bathwater, even if you're pro or anti the current direction. That even if you're anti-Stephen Kenny, are you anti the style as well, or can a better manager, manager implement it?
We need a progressive style of play that reflects how the modern game is evolving, and we need to find an Irish version of that. And the best person to do that seems to be someone who's come up through our system and who understands our football culture intimately, who is absolutely aware of every nuance of it, as opposed to an international manager who comes and says, oh no, this is easy, you just do this, this and this, because that's what I've always done and it's always worked for me. Like, that was fine to get us to the point where we were supposed to have something coming up underneath it, and it turns out we just don't. So look, the other alternative is to go out and get a load of plastic paddies who've got no connection with the country and who are like slightly better than the current crop that we have. Is that what everybody wants? I don't think so.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's not so much in the plasticity of the paddy, it's more to do with the quality of the footballer that they are, I think, which...
you take any out of plastic at this stage.
Well, as long as they're good at football, as long as they're very good, rather than being slightly better.
Plastic doesn't degrade. It's non-biodegradable. Oh, and it's bad for the environment.
It is. It's terrible for the environment. There is more Ireland coming in the performance rankings, believe it or not, once we get to green. Munster is also in red. To be honest here, like, I mean, we've been hearing from Alan Quinlan earlier on in the show. He said he felt a little bit sorry for Munster, and again, you can throw the where do we go from here line. It almost feels like that.
Where do we go from here?
My very sporting identity, like the guy, when Michael J. Fox is looking at the picture in Back to the Future and his family are disappearing one by one, I'm like looking at my hands this morning, I'm like, my sporting identity is just dissolving from my fingertips to my head at the moment. Like, because the identity of Irish football has been questioned. The identity of Munster rugby has been questioned over the last couple of days. Are you feeling smug as hell this morning, having set Munster up, basically, Ger, for the fall last week, coming on to this show and saying, yera, 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 Munster are the best team of all time. They're definitely favourites for this, rubbishing the 7-point spread that the bookies had put down relatively accurately at the time, and saying that Munster had a real chance?
We moved the spread from 7 to 5 with all our talk last week, Eoin. I think you'll find that it wasn't just...
Your talk.
It wasn't just us. I see I was getting blamed for talking Munster up
correctly
on a load of social media tweets, generally from people I'd muted or blocked a long time ago. So I wasn't that surprised. Incorrectly, absolutely incorrectly. This Munster team, on the back of the quality of the performances that so many of them had over the course of the Six Nations, Tadhg Beirne in the conversation for Six Nations Player of the Tournament, but is like not the same player when he was playing for Munster against Leinster at the weekend. The other thing is that the last time Leinster played Munster, there was one move that Leinster had that got them through for a try that was a little bit fluky. Over the course of the game, you would have said that Leinster didn't actually deserve to win that game, and it wouldn't have been terribly surprised if Munster had won the last game. This game, I mean, right now we're going to talk about Leinster at the start, but like the thing that makes Leinster fans so excited is that they've got so much room to improve. If some of the passes go to hand, there's 3 tries scored in that first half, and probably a bit more. Like it was an annihilation, essentially, a 10-point annihilation. One of those performances where Leinster reward the players who've been playing in the Pro 14 and also are shorn of superstar talent, like genuine world-class talent missing because of injuries. And it's like not a big deal at all. That first half was so easy for Leinster, even though it finished 6-6. You're like, whew, geez, I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel in any way smug. I'm really disappointed because Leinster need Munster to be really good. Irish rugby needs Munster to be able to beat Leinster in a one-off, in a final, fairly regularly. Otherwise you do have to start questioning about the academy system and how that's going to work into the future for Ireland, and doling out players to the 4 provinces so that they're competitive. And then that just gets me back to the whole point, like, what is Munster's identity? And if you continue to dilute that, then these games become meaningless. And if these games become meaningless, the competition for places in the Ireland team isn't as fierce as it should be, and it's not based on anything. And we're back to the same, oh, look, we're a quarter-final team in the World Cup.
I don't think that the dilution of any sort of rivalry was present at the weekend. I don't think that was the explanation.
But it doesn't feel like a rivalry anymore again, because like you have to win occasionally. You've got to win one of these games occasionally.
But your point about the dilution was kickstarted by the Joey Carbery trade. Let's not get away from that fact. And Munster should be a better province with the Joey Carbery trade. But yet you were saying that the rivalry is being diluted because the gap is growing between the teams. That gap should close once a player comes from the other province. So you can't have your cake and eat it when it comes to this
I'm having
argument.
my cake and eating it this week, Eoin. Come on, tell me how you're going to fix Munster.
How am I going to fix Munster? Like it does just seem like a very similar conversation to the Ireland conversation. Like no matter what level you get down to, like is the coach doing as well as he possibly could be? Is he the right man for the job? Are the players good enough? The academy structure is like very similar to the Ireland underage structures, and this whole conversation around like the hotbeds of Munster rugby, have they been eroded down through the years? Like the idea of Limerick as a rugby powerhouse, has that just firmly shifted in hurling's favour at the moment? Can those two sports tap into the huge talent that exists in that one city, or has that ship sailed at this point? Has Limerick hurling done such a good job that you're simply just not going to have enough? The West Cork development structures that seem to be kind of more important almost, or becoming more important to Munster rugby, how sustainable is that? Like the one thing you would say, just to give a positive note, is that someone like Gavin Coombs looked absolutely brilliant on Saturday night, and there are younger players coming through at Munster. If Joey Carbery's fully fit, maybe they look better, and maybe Craig Casey as a partner to him in the long term, that can actually be a hopeful thing. It's just demoralising when you think that the short-term improvements were being made and the results have not shown any improvement whatsoever.
All right, a reminder that obviously the performance rankings, while Eoin officially unveiled them on a Monday morning, we solicit your views on social all weekend. You can nominate the good, the bad and the grand. That's what the middle one is, it's grand. From the sporting weekend to be given the chance to win a Gillette starter pack, and plenty of you have been in touch. We're going to get you the winner of those in just a moment. Who's an orange?
France. France are always an orange. Got beaten on Friday night, not sure if you noticed, against Scotland. I guess the product of that was obviously a certain trophy being awarded to the Wales national rugby team, the men's national rugby team. And
before you talk about the Welsh national rugby team getting a trophy, it is the second least prestigious trophy that was handed out over the course of the weekend, the trophy that Scotland got for beating France. Did you know that the Scots were on the pitch celebrating with a trophy? Did you see that?
I did see that.
The what? It's like, they get a trophy for beating France. Okay. That and Seamus Coleman, there is a picture doing the rounds of Seamus Coleman with his Player of the Match award from the Luxembourg game, which, like, he should keep. You know, there's definitely I think there's a recovery from this point. And when he's the Republic of Ireland manager and we've qualified for our third successive major tournament in 20 years' time, I hope he wheels that out and brings it to the players and says, this was my lowest moment, but look where I've taken Irish football since. But the second least prestigious trophy over the weekend was the one that the Scots got for beating France.
Do you know the name of it?
The Gilles something or other, Johnny Scotland France Flovin trophy.
The Owl the Lions trophy. So it was first awarded in 2018, the centenary of the end of World War I, to commemorate the French and Scottish rugby players who were killed during the conflict. So it's a new thing, so you would be forgiven for not noticing until this year maybe, when everybody was watching Scotland against France. So I was flicking between Virgin and BBC. I think it was BBC who said, oh, there's Scotland celebrating with the trophy. That the All the Lions trophy didn't necessarily come to mind quite as easily as the Calcutta Cup, for example. So fair play to Scotland, and France just being France, really, to be honest. They could have killed that game off and got the win so easily at the end, and they decided to go for that extra try because apparently it matters. Right, green. So we've done Leinster a good bit. So also in green is the Kenny haters, who have been, I would say, lying in the long grass, but that would suggest they were hiding. They have not been lying in the long grass. They've been leaking stories and making stuff up, and just generally been anti-Kenny since before Kenny got the gig. So is that who you're talking about? Yes, that's it. I think we kind of boxed them off nicely in the red already. We kind of, our two greens are the Kenny haters who've had a good weekend and might actually see the back of Stephen Kenny before the end of this campaign, and of course green Leinster, which of course is a beautiful way to finish up at 9:31 on this Monday morning, to say congratulations to you, Ger, and to your beloved Leinster on another hard-earned trophy. Oh, the bitter word. You're such a good loser, though, and I suppose you've got plenty of practice with these days. God, the banter is just off the charts this morning. This all friendly joshing between one team and another. It just doesn't get better than this, does it? Well done to Leinster. Getting smashed Saracens-esque towards the end of this Champions Cup campaign might actually bring a smile back to us. Right, Air Force Union on Twitter says, the brutal Ireland, no need for explanation. The bad Munster losing again to Leinster. Fair going Wales, Six Nations champs. Fair play to Wales, Six Nations champs. Who could have predicted that? The good, Scotland's first win in Paris in 20 odd years. In fairness, Scotland were dynamic and kept going to the very end. And then even better, Leinster, #4 in a row. The good, Henshaw leading by example. The bad, O'Mahony, very quiet against Leinster. He did go off injured. Leinster are almost on a par with the Limerick Hurlers, a different level, says Jared on YouTube. And great game to finish, the best Six Nations I've seen, and a nice cherry on top of that with Leinster's completing their 4 in a row, says Holman. But the winner this week is Mick Blake, who has Munster at the bottom. Even though I'm a Munster fan, nowhere to be seen when it mattered. Good mind yourself, Mick. You pick up a Gillette starter pack, and stay tuned to our social over the course of the weekend. We'll give you the opportunity to enter that, and it's pretty easy, as you can see. You just nominate a good performance or a bad performance from the weekend, and we'll be in touch, Mick, about how you can become as clean-shaven and as well-groomed as both myself and Eoin here.